Today, Command Chief Master Sergeant Daniel Guzman joined me for a 90-minute podcast. It's my 32nd birthday, which means it's been exactly 1 year since I posted my first podcast. Chief Guzman has been the Command Chief at Fairchild Air Force Base for almost 18 months and is set to be the Command Chief at Elmendorf this summer. He currently has 25 years in active duty, and we talk about some of the lessons and experiences he's gained in those years. Chief values being available for airmen and being the voice for airmen during meetings with senior leadership. He pointed out that we can't assume everyone has a mentor or a coach, and we need to coach those people. We talk about how he worked 12 plus hours at Lakenheath and burnt himself out as a senior master sergeant, and after a PCS to Langley, he realized he was the only one working past 1700 and that he needed to rearrange his priorities. He suggested I read the book Go Giver and Culture Code, and within Go Giver, the book highlighted that the most successful people are willing to share their secrets with others. I try to get Chief Guzman to share as many of those secrets he's learned as I can within these next 90 minutes. I've got Chief Master Sergeant Daniel Guzman. Guzman. I should have practiced that before we started.
Just don't call me Guzman.
I won't.
I only ask.
I can do that. So, Chief, you're number 18 on my podcast. I really appreciate you coming by to do this. I know we've got about an hour, maybe some change. We'll extend potentially, but thanks for coming. Number 18. I know you PCS soon, so thanks for getting in here.
Yeah.
Today's actually my birthday, so this is good.
Happy birthday, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a cool way.
Turned
to
30 today.
32.
32.
Actually, I started this podcast a year ago today, like on my birthday. Chief Wood.
Anniversary. Yeah. Ron Wood. I met him. Good guy. I think we sat together for one of the AFSA dinners.
Okay.
The AFSA worldwide deal this past summer.
Okay. Yeah, he's popular. Seems like a lot of people are pretty more popular than I
The
realized.
longer you hang around, the more people you get to meet.
Yep.
And then when you run these circles, I've been running these circles since 2018, just being around command chiefs, key, senior enlisted leaders. You get to know a lot of folks. Cool.
So, to get started, we were actually just talking before we started. We both know Chief Bogdan, too, so another one.
Yep, he's a powerhouse.
He is a powerhouse. But just before we get started, quickly about you and about your career.
Yeah, long story short, I was born in the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, and my first 11 years of my life were spent there. I have a couple of siblings. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. We're kind of far apart. My brother's about 4 years younger than me. My sister's, she's actually 8 years younger than me.
Okay. You're the oldest.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of the three. And then in 1989, my mother, brother, sister, we immigrated to Miami, Florida. My dad was kind of in and out of the picture, and then eventually pretty much out of the picture. So I grew up in basically a single-parent home. Mom, the oldest of the three. Mom took on a lot of crap jobs to make ends meet, for a long time. She spent over 25 years working at a grocery store as an assistant manager in Miami, Florida. That's where we moved to, Miami, Florida.
How old were you when you got there?
I was 11 years old, and I remember my parents at the time. Dad was, like I mentioned, he was in and out. He kind of helped us get set up there. And their idea was, hey, this summer you're going to go off to a summer camp. We're going to pay for you to go to one of these day camps where we just drop you off in the morning, pick you up in the afternoon. And you're going to learn how to speak English, basically. Figure it out.
So you came to America not knowing how to speak English?
I knew very little English. It was just, hello, how are you? My name is, the basics, the very basic stuff. And they dropped me off there that summer. It was July. We got to America on the 5th of July. And I've been to the States a few times before. Matter of fact, we lived in New Jersey for about roughly a year. My younger brother was born in New Jersey in a little town called Bridgeton, early 80s. And then we moved back to DR. So I would get to travel.
So you didn't do second grade? Were you 7 or 8?
When I was in Jersey, when he was born in 82, and I was roughly, 4 years old. I wasn't even in school yet. I just kind of hung out. And back to DR, and then once in a while we get to travel to New York, visit my family. My mom's family was up there in New York City, and then I remember one winter we went to New York, and I remember I thought I was going to die. It was 20 degrees out, or negative 20 or something, and I thought I was going to die because coming from the Caribbean where it's warm.
Yeah.
What is negative 20? That is that. What is this? That's my most vivid memory of New York, how cold it was. And then sometimes I thought it was a little sketch at times.
America sucks.
America's kind of sketchy, and then it's hard times and cold weather. And then I remember, once in a while, I think we came to visit Miami a few times with my dad. He would go there for business and do stuff. I would just tag along and go with him and whatever, just sitting in meetings with him and trying to stay awake, whatever. He owned a small business in the Dominican Republic. Eventually would evolve to selling cell phones, like a cell phone business, a cell phone shop, and I'll go into that later. But really, we moved to America in 1989. It was just my mom got fed up with living in the Dominican Republic. They didn't trust the situation there as far as like security, the economy, jobs, and she had a good job. She was a professional. She worked in it was basically a power company type enterprise, and she was doing administrative work there, and she had a decent job there, right? But she decided, I'm going to give this up and move. I don't want my kids to grow up in this. And then, the whole marriage situation was kind of shaky. And my dad kind of set us up in Miami. I remember the house, it was a $70,000 home at the time. It's about a 1,200 square foot home. A small, like attached townhome setup. And that's where we grew up, basically. And mom worked a lot. We all went to school. We spent a lot of time at home alone.
Yeah.
And I remember, like I was just talking about baseball with you, my 12-year-old, he's a big baseball head, but I don't think he realizes, like, your dad's involved, your mom's supportive, everything you get asked for, you have. Like, there's nothing you need for. Like, in essence, you need a new bat, you got it. You need a glove, got it. You need, baseball camp, let's go. With me, I remember I played baseball 1 year, like Little League. I was 13, going on 14. There was none of you're on your own.
You had to find your own stuff.
And I'm not complaining. I'm glad I went through that. I appreciate those things, the process. But it was like, hey, you got to go to practice. Yeah, the neighbor's going to drop you off, and you got to walk home.
Yeah.
And this is like a 3 mile.
That's a long
At the
walk.
time for a 13, 14, you're like, man, I got to walk home. Sketchy, whatever, in the highway, whatever. You just do it. You just figure it out. If you want to play balls, you got to own it. And mom will provide what she could. Here's a bat. Here's a glove. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And there was no, if you want to do it bad enough, you'll figure it out. You'll do it. But anywho, growing up in Miami, it was pretty much the three of us, siblings. Mom's always working. And she worked this job at this grocery store for 25 years. Finally, so she got to the point where she could collect Social Security. She kind of retired. But guess what? There's no retirement pension. There's nothing. There's no benefits. You work, okay, you don't come to work, you don't get paid anymore. That's it. Figure it out. So she still does like part-time work at a school nearby the house where my niece and nephew attend. So it keeps her busy, a little bit of money.
Does your mom still live in that same townhome?
Still lives in that same house. She'll never leave. She'll never leave Miami. I'm convinced of that. It has to do in part because why leave? She barely speaks English, very little English. In Miami, you don't have to speak English. I mean, the majority population is immigrated from somewhere else. So it's Spanish, Creole, other languages from South America, Caribbean, and you're fine.
Yeah.
You can survive. You can do fine. You can find work, and you can make a living or make a life. At least still now. I don't know how much longer because it's getting really expensive to live there.
Yeah, I bet.
Rent prices and everything else going up. Mortgages are outrageous.
So before you joined, what kind of jobs were you doing?
Bro, I did every kind of den job possible. In high school, when I turned 16, I remember I was playing like this thing. There's a baseball program called RBI Baseball, Reviving Baseball in the Inner Cities. And I remember the Marlins had a program set up, the Miami Marlins, or it used to be called the Florida Marlins in Miami, where they were pretty much sponsored like a little league for underprivileged or urban areas or kids that, hey, it's free. You just got to show up to practice, and we'll buy the gear. We'll provide volunteer coaches. And I remember being 15 or 16 years old and doing that, and my mom finally told me, hey, you need to get a job. Like, enough of this. I remember my mom and dad chipped in. They bought me a $1,000 car. It was a Cadillac Eldorado. They're like, hey, you have a car now. You got to put gas in it. You can go drive yourself to work. Figure it out. You need to get a job. So I went and got a job. I got my first job at Eckerd's, a place called Eckerd's Pharmacy, which this no longer exists. And anybody from Florida or South Florida would know what Eckerd's is. That grew up in the 90s. I think Rite Aid or somebody else bought him out, or another big corporate chain.
Okay.
My first job was there working on the drug counter. People go pick up their prescription. I would hand them over and charge them and send them on their way. Did that for less than a year, and then I ended up going over and getting a job at Wendy's, flipping burgers, basically working the kitchen at Wendy's. Did that for a little while.
Are their burgers really never frozen?
That's fake news. We thaw them out and throw them on the grill, but it's a good. I think Wendy's, no sponsorship here. I don't want to put you on the spot, but for my money, if I were to eat like a fast food burger, I would go to Wendy's.
Even after working there.
Even after working there, I think it's legit. I mean, it's real meat, it's real beef. It's not like something it's fresh ingredients for the most part, and then the chili, I know what it is. I used to make chili all the time at Wendy's. It's just grounded up old burger patties. But all in all, I would eat Wendy's over some other places.
I might be able to get Wendy's to sponsor me now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Mr. or Dave's family. Dave's gone already, but his family's still around. But anywho, I worked at Wendy's for a while, flipped the burgers. And then I'm looking back. If my son was like 16 years old or 17 years old, would I let him do the things I was doing? I feel like I was driving myself. I would be there till like past midnight, closing up the shop, cleaning up. It wasn't a terrible neighborhood, but it wasn't the safest neighborhood, the part of town I was in outside of, Carol City, Florida.
And going to school the next day?
Usually when I closed, I didn't have school. It would be like Friday, Saturday, Sundays. And then when I did have school, it would be during the weekday schedule, I would be off like before closing time. So they worked with us for the most part. It was part-time. And then from Wendy's, I did that for a while, but over a year. And then I moved on, eventually got hired on at Walmart. And Walmart was that was an interesting job too, because you're dealing with, I worked in the layaway counter, the layaway department. So people come pick up their stuff from layaway. Well, they don't pay their layaway bill.
Yeah.
Guess what happens to the stuff? We put it back on the shelf and somebody else can buy it. We only hold it for so long. Once it goes past due, you haven't paid a bill. Hey, we got to put it back.
So you just dealt with angry
people. People get upset when they roll up in there to get their Tickle Me Elmo, whatever they wanted. And, hey, man, we have to put it back on the shelf. Sorry. And people will cuss you, yell at you. And as an 17, 18-year-old, like, man, this is not.
This is not what I want to do.
I don't get paid enough to deal with this craziness. Did that for a while. And then really my senior year in high school, I kind of I didn't work for a little bit. I took a pause from working, and I kind of just focused in on my academics. I wasn't going to finish high school on time, basically, if I didn't get my act together. My junior year in high school, I would skip school a lot or just not do the right things, not focus in, and my grades were kind of in the dump. I couldn't play any high school sports, until my senior year. Basically, I was on the track team for a cup of coffee, basically, that year, because my grades were high enough to do something, but I couldn't do a whole lot in high school. I limited my options. So senior year in high school, I'm going to focus in and actually try. I'm going to study. I'm going to do the right things. Luckily, we were fortunate that I can take a break from just working and doing whatever else I was doing and focus on academics. And I got my grades high enough where, I had a B+ average pretty much the whole school year, and I graduated on time. I finished school. I had to go to summer school the summer prior to my senior year to catch up on some things. Luckily, I was taking this weight training class. I didn't even realize the coach, which to this day, thank you if you're out there, but the weight training coach, he was giving me credit, like an extra credit for showing up after school and lifting weights. My sophomore and junior year in high school, I would go and lift weights. He gave me like a half a credit or something cheesy, but it helped towards contributing towards me graduating on time. I didn't even know he was doing that. He would just mark you as being there and then give you credit for showing up, just for showing up and lifting weights. He would show us some stuff, show us what to do, and then half the people in there were the football players and everybody else. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do it just because I want to.
Yeah.
And that was great. That helped me. But anywho, I got my stuff together senior year in high school, graduated. After I graduated from high school towards the end, I got a job at a place called Service Merchandise, which doesn't even exist anymore. It was a place where you can go shop for appliances, jewelry, whatever you want. I mean, it had a good mix thing, a good mix inventory of things available. And then my job was working in the warehouse, basically. I worked in the warehouse, and that was what they called an expediter. So somebody would order like a big TV set or a TV stand, or anything big that was bulky would be in the back, and I had to go pull it from the shelf with material handling equipment, whatever that was, pallet jack, whatever you name it. I had to get back there, pull it, put it on a conveyor belt, and make sure it got to the front so the customer can grab it and go.
How old were you when you actually joined?
I joined the Air Force. I was 18. Okay. I was basically, when I was working at Service Merchandise, I was also going to junior college at a place called Miami-Dade North. Miami-Dade Community College. Now it's called Miami-Dade State College. Florida changed from community colleges. Now they call them state colleges. And now, which is great, I think Florida's got this right. You could actually get a 4-year degree at your state college and pay community college prices or junior college prices. Yeah. They only offer so many things you can major in. I have a hard time with some words still. Yeah. Spanish, primary language. I think so many things you can focus in on and get your degree in or major in. Like business admin, teaching, they make it simple. But at the end of the day, you can go to a 4-year, you can go and pay a fraction of what you would pay the University of Florida, the big state schools, Florida State, or even, the private colleges, universities, and get your 4-year degree out of a state college. So at the time, it was just Miami-Dade Community College. They have a North Campus that was about 25, 30 minutes from my house. So I was going to school there and pretty much using the state Pell Grants or whatever else I can get for tuition assistance, and then paying out of pocket for everything else. Or I would take out student loans, whatever, to pay for books. So I did that for the entire summer semester of 1996. Yeah, that's a long time ago. And I was thinking, well, let me try this. I'm trying to go to junior college like everybody else is going to college. That's what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to try it, see how it goes. And between working and barely making enough money to put gas in my car to get out there. So, you know what, I don't think my life's going anywhere. I mean, I worked service merchandise. Before that, I worked at a Winn-Dixie grocery store, stocking the shelves in the midnight shift. That was a junky job if you ever had one.
I didn't know you had 6 jobs.
So many jobs. And I got fired from Walmart.
They fired you?
I literally got fired for just having a poor attitude. Wow. I was doing and this is legit. This is all things that I'm glad I went through because it teaches you to appreciate a job. And I just had a crappy attitude about doing the jobs. Like I had to go pick up shopping carts in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. That was one of the last things they had me doing a lot of. It was just, I just had a crappy attitude. I didn't take the assistant manager would get on my case because I was, what are you doing? You're lollygagging out there. You're acting like you're not interested. Or no crap, I'm picking up shopping carts. It's like 100 degrees out here with humidity in Miami, and I got bird crap everywhere. And what being 18 or being pissed off at the world because your life is not what you think it should be. All those things just didn't mix with picking up shopping carts at Walmart. So anyway, going through that, going through all these jobs, dead-end jobs, and you're working. What I remember from those days was some of the people that were working there were like a lot of them were immigrants or people that were just been in America for a while. Just one guy I remember from Walmart, he got laid off from a good corporate type job, what people think is a good job, and he got laid off and he had to start all over again and get a part-time job at Walmart or a full-time job at Walmart working in the layaway department. I worked at Winn-Dixie with a gentleman who immigrated from Cuba in his 30s. He had to start all over. I'm sure he had some kind of professional. He went to college probably, and he had to start stocking shelves at Winn-Dixie on the graveyard shift. It takes a lot of humility to say, you know what, I might have been this in another life or somewhere else, but I got to start from the bottom here, working with high school kids or people that are trying to figure out their life.
Yeah. Do you think they were influences on you joining?
Everything's an influence. And I had 2 uncles that were retired. Now they're retired Navy, but the military was always in the back of my head. Like, well, if college doesn't work out and I feel like I'm just kind of stuck on a treadmill here, not going anywhere. The military is definitely something I'll look into. And I got a piece of something in the mail came in for me, like, hey, federal services or military services, we're looking to recruit. And it had all the services on there and the numbers. And I called 1-800-423-USAF. That was the number I called for the recruiter.
Just off a piece of mail.
Off a piece of mail, say, you know what, I'll give it a whim. I heard the Air Force, my uncles always tell me, if you're going to come into the service, go talk to the Air Force guy, talk to the Coast Guard, maybe the Navy, don't even think about the other 2 services, the Army and the Marines. That was just their Navy. They were the best Air Force recruiters I ever had with 2 sailors. That would tell me, hey, if you're going to come into the service, go look into the Air Force or the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard guy, I never heard from the Coast Guard, and when I did go to maps and all that, the Coast Guard guy was never there. It seems like he was always out. They have a smaller number they have to recruit, and then once they hit it, they go fishing or something. I don't know what they do.
Why wouldn't you?
But I heard it's a great service. People I gone to school with tell me, they liked their experience in the Coast Guard. But the Air Force, when I called the number, left a voicemail. The next day I got a call from a Tech Sergeant David Angleton, who was my recruiter. He was an air traffic controller by trade.
Oh, nice.
And he didn't have to sell me in the Air Force. So I went to see him in his office down the road from my house in Miami Lakes. Nice office, great setup. And I told him, hey, you don't have to convince me on anything. I'm ready to go. All I asked for is a free T-shirt and any other kind of swag you can provide. So he gave me a T-shirt and a hat and a couple of pins that said Air Force on them. And the only thing I asked for was, hey, the only thing I work outdoors now. I work in the elements or in a warehouse. I want an indoor job. I want to work inside an office. That's it.
Uh-huh.
That's my only...
Easy request.
Here's my ASVAB scores. They weren't that great. I had to retake the ASVAB because I took it in high school to get out of class, whatever. And I got the Navy was calling me like, oh, you're qualified. You can join us. I remember the recruiter wouldn't tell me what kind of job I would get. She said, hey, you're qualified. You met. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to talk to, I don't think I want to go in the service. And then when I went and talked to the Air Force, like, yeah, you got to redo it. You're good enough to get in the Navy, but you got to get a little bit higher to come in the Air Force. So I went and retook it. Barely made it, over the 40 mark at the time on the ASVAB.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good enough to get me an open admin guarantee or something like that along those lines. So I went to basic training, and they told me, hey, you're going to be a material manager or supply guy. I don't know what that was. I just assumed, okay, I guess I work in a warehouse or in an office or some kind of indoor facility. So he kept to his promise. Starting in Angleton, hey, you'll be inside. You'll be out of the elements.
Yeah.
Because I worked at the time, I was at Walmart, and I was like, I'm tired of being out in the sun or being out in whatever, dealing with craziness. So that was all I asked for. And it worked out. I mean, and I remember in February of 97, I was officially signed up, everything ready to go. And then 2 months later, I was gone. 2 April, I started off basic training, and there goes the rest of my life. 25 years have gone by quickly.
So 21 years-ish after you joined, you got to be a Command Chief First Sergeant in USAFE, right?
I got to be what they call a Command First Sergeant, and I got hired for that in 2018. I was on my way back. I was about to depart Afghanistan off of my latest deployment, where I was working as the 455th ELRS SEL or superintendent at the time, the squadron chief, basically. Great deployment, great. I got to see a lot of the country, travel, go outside, defense lines of Bagram, and do some cool stuff and see some cool things. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I mean, I loved the experience. And that was my third time in Afghanistan, in Bagram, and only my sixth deployment. I would have gone more, but I had a stint as a first sergeant, as a tactical level first sergeant for 4 years, and I didn't get any deployment opportunities. I had one that I was hoping it would materialize. It was during the Libya situation in 2011, but it didn't materialize. But long story short, in 2018, I applied to the job on a whim to be the command first sergeant at USAFE Africa. I kind of knew what the job would entail. I was like, I'll figure I'll put the diamond back on, which was great. I get to, be the shirt or be the functional manager, the MFM for all the first sergeants in the command in USAFE Africa. I get to be the kind of like the eyes and ears for that command chief in USAFE Africa and see the field. I just kind of feed him information on what's going on, what we need help with, or what we can help the field with, et cetera. So I figured a great opportunity, and I get a lot of insight into the command chief business, which is something at the time that I figured, I find it intriguing. Maybe I aspire to be a command chief someday. At least get more of a glimpse of what it's like, and then decide if this is the life for us, opportunity that we want to partake in. So anywho, I got the opportunity to apply for the job. On my way back from deployment, I remember being spending like a week at Al-Udeid, waiting for my rotator stuff to line up. And I remember I called up to USAFE on a whim, like, hey, I haven't heard from anybody. I'm deployed. I'm sure. I don't know if you guys email my home email, and sure enough, they did. They said, hey, sorry, we weren't tracking. You have an interview. You got to get ready. Here's your interview.
Over the phone or in person?
It was a virtual, video type setup. But I'm glad I called because they told me, we want to interview you, but we emailed, we haven't heard back. I was like, well, I'm deployed. I'm making my way home now. So they were happy that I checked in.
Nice.
And then roughly a week after I got back from deployment, I got back to Eglin. I was stationed at Eglin at the time. I had my interview with Chief Phil Easton, who is now the UCOM senior enlisted leader. At the time, he was USAFE Africa Command Chief, and I worked for him directly in that position. So he interviewed multiple candidates, and then I interviewed, I think it was on a Thursday or a Friday or something like that. And then that Sunday they called me and say, hey, we'd like to have you and your wife come and join us out here in USAF Africa. And I wasn't expecting that. I kind of applied thinking, I have a shot. Maybe they'll consider me. I really thought they were going to hire somebody who just got done being a first sergeant, tactical level, and made chief. And but they wanted to go the opposite way. They wanted somebody with time back in their career field. I had 6 years back as a material manager. I've been a flight chief as a senior. I've done multiple jobs where I was a base level functional manager, and then did a year working staff and working in the 480th ISR wing, which they have a headquarters staff, doing the, your UEIs, the typical things a staffer does, the functional manager things for that wing as far as the supply, the material management community. So I had a lot of relevant operational experience doing the MFM type things that prep you to be an MFM. At the same time, I had my experience as a first sergeant, 4 years of field experience as a first sergeant between Davis Mountain and Lodges Field. So they were looking for that mix. They weren't looking for somebody who'd been a shirt for 8 years and kind of been stovepiped in that world. And it worked out. So I got picked up. And in the summer of 2018, we moved over to Germany, headquarters USAF Africa, and I spent about 2 years and 4 months there prior to coming here to Fairchild.
You applied for this too, right? Interview?
Well, the way that these command chief jobs work, and some people, the way it works is basically you got to be what they call a candidate. You got to get vetted. They have a board that vets, of the AFCEL, which is your MAGCOM, a good mix of your MAGCOM command chiefs and some of the COCOM command chiefs, depending on what kind of mix they go with. And then you have a couple of general officers and the Chief Master of the Air Force that sit there on that board and vet the people that each wing or wing equivalent nominates or pushes forward as a potential nominee to be a command chief candidate.
Is it just paper or is it interviews?
A little bit of both. Here, like for example, I can tell you how we do things here is we have people that we know are interested, and the wing commander has to obviously put his name on their report and say, hey, I nominate this person, or I'm pushing him or her to be a command chief candidate. If they don't know them, of course, there'll be an interview. There'll be some kind of conversation where, hey, what you want to do this? Great. Why?
Yeah.
And I'll have those conversations too with the folks leading up to it. At the end of the day, they shouldn't be a stranger to that wing commander putting his name on the piece of paper, and they shouldn't be a stranger to me. So we have interviews and conversations. I guess you call them conversations leading up to us putting our name on stuff, saying, hey, we want to push him on this track to be a command chief. So the way it works is, they have to vet you, nominate you. So I was nominated twice to be a command chief candidate. I was nominated at Eglin. Each wing they do a rack and stack of, a 1 through and whatever, how many folks, like a stratification type deal for chiefs. Here's my number 1 candidate to be a command chief. Here's my number 2. My first year up, I was number 2 out of Eglin. I didn't make the candidate list that year, and the feedback I got was, well, you just got to USAF Africa. We want to see you. And my boss happened to be on that board, and his feedback to me was basically, you just got here. We want to see you in this job first.
Their feedback?
Great, nothing I can do about that. Got it. And then at the end of the day, it's not like this is not a promotion. These jobs you're not promoted to these jobs. These are just opportunities to serve as a chief in a capacity as a command chief. So people get it twisted well, it's a promotion or you outrank the other chiefs. I don't outrank anybody. I just happen to be the guy that got nominated and selected to serve in this position.
Yeah. So here's a question.
There's no E10.
Yeah. It's a philosophical kind of question to ask someone. What does it mean to be, and then whatever. So what does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a baseball player? What does it mean to be a command chief?
The way I see it is, in my last role as the command first sergeant, I would tell the first sergeant in the command and the airmen at large, hey, I'm an advocate for you. I'm not going to get paid any more money. I'm not doing this for any more clout, whatever. I get to advocate for you, and I get to speak up on the things that you don't get to speak on because you're not in the room to have the conversations. Well, I have access to those rooms. I have access to influence to make your life better, to make, operations, your life in general better, quality of service and quality of life, to improve it. So I'm there to advocate for you. At the same time, I'll keep it real with you. I'll tell you when sometimes people ask for things and are they wants or are they needs or are they legit issues? And that's where I have to gauge and have that back and forth conversation to see, okay, what can we get to yes on and what can we influence, what can we control, and where can I meet you at to improve, quality of life, quality of service, whatever that looks like. and overly to provide a mission-ready, operationally ready airman and a family that's mission-ready and operationally ready. That's it.
Okay.
It's just access to a room, to a conversation.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. I have a seat at the table, and I can speak up on things for people that can't be in the room to speak up on those things. And I can provide that perspective that sometimes the people making the decisions kind of no fault in their own, but they're kind of in a vacuum at times because of their schedule, because of the priorities, because of what's asked of them. So I have to be the eyes and ears, the hands and the feet at times to get out there. And what's the rest of the story they're not seeing?
Yeah.
What's the perspective they don't get? Coming up enlisted, and coming up from certain backgrounds or just having, different experiences. You're not a set of eyeballs, and a lot of, and you hear this a lot, not to sound cheesy, but you're the person that's covering those blind spots that he or she may have, the decision maker may have. I don't make decisions. I hope I help influence and shape those things, but I'm not the decision maker. I'm there as an advisor, point and blank.
Yeah.
But I'm also there to provide the perspective and the viewpoint and the inputs and to speak up for those people that can't be in the room, that are not in the room because they're out doing the things that need to be done to.
Yes, I'm sure your relationship and your influence with the wing commander who is making most of those decisions has to be important. How's the relationship?
Yeah. Well, I'm fortunate. We have a great relationship here. I mean, really, I call it the favorite few crew. Because it's a crew, right? The 135 is a crew aircraft. You have your pilot, your co-pilot, and then you have your crew in the back, your boom operator and your flying crew chief that make it all happen, right? So we're a crew. So I look at Colonel Bentley, Colonel Marshall, or Vice Wing, and myself as a crew. So we make decisions. We over-communicate. We spend a lot of time together. And you got to have a good relationship. Relationships are critical to these jobs, to these opportunities. And when you see that stuff goes sideways with teams, with command teams, is when they don't have good rapport, open dialogue, and they're honest with each other. And it's not always going to be flowery, or you're going to get on each other's nerves. You're going to drive each other's bonkers.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is you're going to know it. If I'm upset, you're going to know it. If I'm happy, you're going to know it. And if I think we missed a mark on something, I'll be the first one to take blame for it and tell you, hey, I got to do better. We got to do better. Here's where we missed the mark. We're going to, they have a house for us home base as command chiefs, but my next door neighbor is the 3rd Wing command chief, which is the flying wing.
Okay.
And I've known him for 12 years. I used to be his first sergeant when I was security forces first sergeant. But it's just interesting how it all just came together. Long story short, we ended up discussing as a family, where do we want to go? And it was Elmendorf and a job in the UK.
Or retire.
And which, like, hey, by the end it'll be, figure we have 25 years is a long run, no shame. I mean, that's longer than I thought I would hang around for sure. I figure I'll do 20 and go. But long story short, it just worked out. So we got pushed for those. We asked to be selected or pushed for those 2 jobs, or at least considered for those 2 jobs. And then interviews took place. One thing led to the other. Next thing you know, we found out, hey, we're headed to Elmendorf. So it worked out. I mean,
it did work out. I have things I could ask you about going to Alaska and not taking leave, especially with what you've got published and what you usually teach when you do ALA. But before that, something Cassie Pease had said she had an interview with you a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then told us about it. And she said something that I really wanted to ask you about. When you were at Lakenheath, I guess you used to work a lot of hours. You prioritized work. And then when you moved to Langley, you realized, hey, maybe I should reprioritize.
I was doing it wrong.
Yeah. Now that you almost went
Let
back
me tell
to
you something. Senior Master Sergeant, people say it's the forgotten rank. I've heard that before. It's like, I think you're people that say that are full of, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but they're full of it.
You can.
They're full of shit. I don't feel forgotten about, because I feel like every tough tasking, every people operational challenge, at least that was my experience at Lakenheath for those 3 years I was there as a senior, as running a flight. It was over 150 people on that flight, and it was 2 of us, 2 seniors, and then we had a young, usually we had a lieutenant or a captain as our flight commander. But that's where the rubber meets the road, is that flight chief, whatever you call it, leadership, that little office. That's where stuff happens. That's where, the people stuff comes to line. I have to use every muscle, every experience as a first sergeant to motivate, whether it's motivating folks, morale, discipline, all those things I got to learn as a first sergeant. Knowing who to call, when to call, operationally, I had to use every muscle. I had to leverage everything I had to improve the operation, to be innovative, to clean up things, to navigate through the heavy inspections, everything. And I feel that's really where you cut your teeth and you prove your worth as a senior NCO, as a leader. You're going to be stretched, and me just being the way I'm wired, people can describe it as being intense at times, which is I want us to be the best. I want our flight to be the best. I want our flight to be on front, innovative, and that was my mindset at the time. So what does that entail? That entails showing up to work, early in the morning, going to the gym, then showing up to work. I don't know, by 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning at the latest, after going to work out. 7:30 in the morning is usually my show time, and not leaving the office until, I don't know, 6:30, 18:30, 1900, 2000 hours some days.
12 hours was normal, huh?
That was the normal routine op. And then when you go home, my wife would catch me talking to myself. And I'll be having conversations with somebody, something that happened or something that was going to happen the next day. And I would talk to myself a lot.
Like in your sleep or just?
I'll be sitting there watching TV or doing something or sitting in the house and looking away and just having a full-blown conversation, to the point where I would laugh at my jokes. I would just talk through scenario. I was at work. I was mentally still at work. So I was home, but I wasn't really home. And my kids noticed it. At the time, they were still young, but they would notice, and they would bring it up to me like, "Dad, you're still talking. You're talking to yourself." And at the time, I was like, "I'm not. Whatever, you guys." I was having these conversations about things that already had happened, that were about to happen. And on top of doing the nuts and bolts, doing the work piece, right? Being a flight chief, the ops, the discipline, the meetings, the what's next type stuff in the job. I was the AFSA division vice president and moved up to be the division president for AFSA. We're division 7.
Is division just the base, or is that?
Division is like the MATCOM equivalent, okay. Like USAFE, the region. I was an AFSA regional president for part of that. And that means you got to do all the reports for the entire region, follow up with all the chapters, the base level, AFSA chapters. Travel was involved too. I had to go to DC every so often for their big meetings with their big, AFSA international. A couple of times a year, at least twice a year. And I had to travel within the command and do all the emails and hey, I got to go here and check on this chapter, or I got to send these emails once a quarter, have these big reports that were due. So that's like a part-time job on its own. That's a job in itself, right? Being a division president. And on top of that, you're doing the whole, the top 3 needs people to step up and run things. I'm it. Mm-hmm. So I would be doing those things. On top of that, I just finished my master's degree as a first sergeant, which was insane. Working on a master's degree as a first sergeant is very time-consuming.
I bet. When
you have 2 kids at home and a wife and everything else, or your weekends were I would go out and do things on Saturdays, try to do things on Saturdays and Sundays, but really those nights, Friday night, Saturday night was writing papers night.
Yeah.
So that means I would get home and I'll be up till 2 a.m.
Yeah, I got no kids, and I know the struggle.
Yeah, writing papers, doing everything that's required, and then the next day you feel like you've been hit by a bus.
Yep.
And you have to be on try to be attentive to your wife and the kids and everything else. It was tough. Anyhow, we get to Lakenheath, and we're still running at that high clip. And by the way, I'm not working on my master's, but I'm doing all these other certifications, because you feel like you're in this arms race where you're like, well, I got to do all this. If I don't do all these things, then somebody else will, and then I won't get promoted, blah, 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 blah. And then meanwhile, you're burning it both ends, right? You're burning yourself out on the job. You're eating like garbage. You can work out all you want, but, at the end of the day, you go home and you overeat because you're stressed. You drink scotch or whatever else they put in front of you, and you get all bloated, and then I remember leaving there, and I was at least 30 pounds overweight.
Leaving Lakenheath?
Leaving Lakenheath. It was a meat grinder.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a whole other story about doing all this stuff, doing all this work, trying to be everything for everybody, and then getting told, in essence, well, I'll tell you right now, getting told at the end of my time, well, it's your first time out for chief, so we're not really looking at you for whatever. You got other people in front of you that have been in longer. So, and I remember leaving there thinking, our flight was like the best in the command. Mm-hmm. We got multiple, we had Air Force level award winners, like civilian, military, MATCOM level winners, wing level winners for the annuals, more quarterlies that we can count with our hands as far as wing level quarterly wins. I was fortunate. I was an Air Force level award winner for the first year that had the Lou Allen Award for the logistics readiness category. In 2013, I was the first one to picked that up, whatever. But
congrats
on the work, standing on the shoulders of the people on my flight and that squadron that helped us out. But
it's really funny you just said that. That's something one of my mentors, Chief Harper, said when he made Chief. He said, I remember some A1C thanked him, and he said, I did it by standing on the shoulders of people like you, but thank you.
It's
so
true.
That
they do the work. I mean, and the Brits say that a lot. You're standing on the shoulders of giants, but they do the work. I mean, I'm just there. I'm a coach. I'm there to point them where to go, tell them how to do stuff, give them some ideas, and bring out the best in them in essence. And so wing level, I was a wing level senior NCO of the year, Air Force level award winner, all the same year, 2013. And then 2015 comes around, first year eligible for chief, and I get told basically, you're not even in the discussion.
Yeah.
Like, you're third in line, and these two guys have been in longer than you. So, and what really, like, looking back now, I can laugh about this. I remember this person giving me this feedback, the chief at the time, telling me, well, and then so-and-so just got his bachelor's degree done.
Yeah, I've got a master's.
And I had my head almost exploded. Like, Chief, I got my master's done 3 years ago.
Did you say it?
I did. And that's when I knew they didn't even look at they didn't even consider me. I wasn't even, I'm young. At the time, I've been in 18 years. They were like, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
You got to go wait your turn. And for all I know, they're probably like, hey, I need to do some more growing. I need to get some more whatever in my life. The same person told me, you're addicted to the Air Force. You're overworking yourself. You're doing everything
That's what the Air Force
that we tell people not to do. You're just running too hard, taking on too many things all at once.
Did you agree with that person at the time when they said that to you?
I was angry. Everybody.
Okay, this is the same time you're not getting pushed.
At the same time, I'm being told it doesn't matter what you've done. Everything you've done is pretty much for naught, even though you accomplish things that none of these folks in front of you have accomplished as far as accomplishments, hardware and, accolades and all that stuff, education, your flights accomplished things and, et cetera, that it wasn't even really considered. So my point was like, so do you really care about, this is at the time that the Air Force is really pushing hard on performance, instead of just, hey, you've been here a long time, we got to promote you. So to me, it was like, we're talking at a three sides room. That really frustrated me when the big institution's saying one thing and then the people on the field are saying, oh, we don't care about, like, we're going to have make our own calls. So I was like, whatever, I wasn't even.
It is cool to see you a command chief now and you still realize that was a thing then. That's cool that does happen to everyone, or it's not just something.
No, and it's personal, right? Because I sacrifice, you sacrifice family time, sometimes sacrifice your health, you overextend yourself. You care more than you show up first, you leave last. You feel like you care more than just about anybody in that building or anybody on that installation. And I'm telling you, I was everything that the installation needed help with. They will come ask for something, I'll do it. I never turn anybody away. I would help my logic was I'll help anybody who asks for help. I'm not going to say no to anything. And it was maniacal almost to the point where when I left there in the summer of 15, I was overweight. I was burnt out. I can tell you my family probably resented me at times because I seemed to care more about that than about them. I don't think I used to make fun of. We had an inside joke in our flight, our little command team up there. Like, some people are here for the ITT trips. Some people are here to go on the little trips and go see Scotland and hang out, and they're in Europe and go have fun. And some of us are here to work. We're here to work.
Yeah,
that was our badge of honor, our thing. Like, I'm here to work. I'm not here to do ITT trips and hang out and just be happy to be here. We're here to work, and that's cool and all, but it comes with a price.
Yeah.
Long story short, we left there. I was really overweight, burnt out, tired. The whole deal with, hey, you're not even being pushed. Not even. What are you talking about, Chief? Like, get out of here, kid. Go, wait your turn. Basically, that's pretty much in my head what I was hearing. So I got a job. We got picked up to go to Langley, and this is just random. I got it. Hey, you're going to work at the 480th ISR wing on the headquarters staff. Like, oh, I don't know what that is. It sounds cool. So you get to work
for LRS or something?
No, I get to be the material management, the supply, what do they call it? The sustainment superintendent. That's the name.
Okay.
The job they had. It was a material manager, supply billet for a senior. You're working on this headquarters staff in the 480th ISR wing, and I work with a bunch of comm folks and it's Intel ISR support. So there's a weapon system called you can look it up. It's public. It's called the DCGS. And you can Google it, look it up, and you'll see some stuff on Wikipedia about it. But anywho, You're just doing sustainment for this weapon system the Air Force uses.
I think I took you off the topic, though. Get back to that.
Yeah.
Like, so you get back after 30 pounds, back in America.
Yeah. I get to Virginia, and I was like, well, I'm going to make it work. I mean, this is a job. I get to work in a skiff. I get to work office hours. Like, I get to focus on my family, my health. And that's what we did. We ended up buying a townhome in Yorktown, Virginia, which, looking back, was probably a bad move. But it's like, well, what are we doing?
Now you're trying to relate to your mom, townhome.
Yeah. Well, it was a nice townhome. It was like a 3-story, 2,500 square foot townhome in Yorktown.
Okay.
I guess they got a lot of townhomes there, but nice area. You know, I was a mile from the Yorktown beach, which is like a river, Yorktown River. You can just run down there. Mm-hmm. I could literally go on a jog and go run down to the beach and back, and it was great. It was great, beautiful, close to Williamsburg, Virginia. It's just a cool little area. Langley's a huge base, beautiful base on the water, headquarters base. So you got everything you can think, you could wish for there. So I figure I'll get to Virginia, we'll focus in, and I might just retire out of here. I'll hit 20 years here, I got there in 2015, so I had 2 more years to go. And I figure, well, I hit 20 here in 2 years, and this will be the place I can settle in. I got, good job in ISR. It's a unique skill that they're always looking to hire in this area, so I could just settle in right here and chill.
Yeah.
Like, what am I stressing about? I don't think I'm going to make chief. And at the time, they had the EPR forms changed too, so the people were doing this whole thing where, well, not everybody can be a
far right,
far right guy or gal. That's crazy. So guess what? You didn't get stratified, so that means you're not the far right guy or gal. So you're one over to the left, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, my career's over."
The 16 bubble.
Because we've been conditioned or brainwashed and thinking, "Oh, anything." Your blocks are marked to the left, your career's over, you're done.
Yeah, I had just made tech that year.
Yeah.
And my supervisor marked me down. I was like down the middle.
Whatever.
And I remember thinking like, this is the end.
This is the end. And I was like, well, it's over. It's curtains for me. It was a good run. I got out of Miami. I made it. I'll make it 20 years and collect a retirement check and get a job, use my top secret clearance, SCI, and some intel stuff that I'm learning here, and get a job doing supply chain sustainment for, whatever. One of these companies will pay me to come in.
But I do want to get to this. So you were, like you said, you were working 12, 13 hours in Lakenheath normally. Yeah. You get to Langley and you realize something there, right?
Yeah, I realized like I'm doing it wrong. Like I'm not enjoying anything. I'm not in the moment. So it was the best thing. Working in a skiff and doing the work we were doing, I couldn't talk about work at home.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And then I would leave. I remember leaving there some days at 1700, 1730, and I'd be tumbleweeds in the hallway. I'd be the last guy. Like everybody does it right there. Like they leave. It's time to go home. It's time to go home. We've been in a skiff all day, no windows. You might go out for a lunch break. I was sitting in my car and have lunch in my car, have like a sandwich or something, just to get out and see the sun.
Yeah.
Or drive someplace, whatever, do something. But it was good for us. It was good for us as a family. We found a good little community there. I mean, we're only there for a year. Ended up being there for a year, but it kind of helped me reset and reprioritize. What am I doing? I've been chasing stuff this whole time, and I've been going at it all wrong. I've been ignoring the people that really matter, the people that are going to be here when it's all done. I've been taking care of myself, so I started running, getting outside, and every morning I go to PT. Nobody was looking for me. I could show up to work at 8:30, whatever, and fine. The stuff's going to be there. Got to go on a few TDYs and see some things. So it was good. It was just a good experience overall. And I got to meet some great people and work with some phenomenal people and learn a whole different side of the Air Force that I would never, people in my career for usually don't get exposure to, working in ISR support. So it was just eye-opening, great. Personally, it was really good for us.
Yeah. So it sounds like you really did get burnt out in England.
Completely burnt out.
When you came to Virginia, you just realized everything.
And not to sound like I'm trashing my experience at the 48th for the
Sure.
Liberty Wing. It was great. I'm extremely proud to call myself a Liberty Wing alum. A lot of great stuff we did. The Sync IA, we're finalists for the Sync IA there in 2015. We're one of the final 2 in the entire Air Force.
Yeah.
All the mission stuff that goes on there. That wing is a busy wing. It's for good reason because they're top notch as the premier fighter wing in the Air Force, bar none. And the level of work that we put in there, it's for a reason. But anyway, going to Langley was phenomenal, and the shift in mindset from I need to really recalibrate and figure out what's important and what really matters.
Yeah, I had same guy, Chief Harper, had me read this book once called The Last Lecture, and it was right when I had made Master. And something I took from that book is it's one of the chapters in there. It's this guy and what he says is hard work is like investing into a bank. Like you need to work as hard as you can, as much as you can while you're young, because it's like an investment which will pay dividends throughout the rest of your career. So it sounds like maybe you had done that in England, and it makes things easier because you know a lot more. But the more I've been in the Air Force, and even though I thought that, and I try to work hard and do that, I'm realizing like that's not the common thought process on like because burnout is a thing. So I don't know what's your opinion. Like, do you think you're better now because you work those long hours?
I'm better for having gone through all those experiences. I'm better for having, people ask me like, oh, you wear a shirt for 4 years and that slowed you down for promotion. How do you feel about that? Somebody asked me the other day, we were TDY someplace, like, hey, I'm worried. I would like to be a shirt, but I'm afraid it's going to hurt my promotion chances. I'm like, you're putting money in the bank. Those experiences, I wouldn't be here without those experiences, without the exposure to the things I had. And I heard I had a mentor, somebody I consider a mentor, somebody I had a chance to work with, used to say, not all chiefs are built alike. Not all command chiefs are built alike, And what he meant is, you have two chiefs here, but one kind of had a sheltered upbringing, or everything was handed to him or her, or not to come across the wrong way, but they had an easier experience. They were in the right place, right time. They did a lot of good work, and then the right people recognized it, and they got, they're promoted. They earned a promotion. And you got the other person here who's gone through some stuff, who's been punched in the mouth, been punched in the face, had, gone through some great experiences, some horrible experiences, and had to, work to burn out, et cetera, just to get told you're not good enough still, go wait, and gone through some things. They both bring some good things to the table, but which one, are you really going to go to where you need advice on going through some things, some adversity, some challenges? Which one can you rely on? They've been through it. They've been through a meat grinder and came out on the other side. Yeah. All the people I looked up to the most that I mentioned earlier, he went to an experience, not without going names, I don't want to put him on the spot, but he went to an experience as a squadron chief where they failed their freaking inspection, like their big, maintenance type inspection. They failed it. Mm-hmm. He left there on the heels of that. He got hired to go do another job.
They failed, then he left?
Basically, as he was getting ready to out-process to leave, his going away was like the saddest, most pathetic going away event ever. He's like, we're just on the heels of failing a freaking inspection, our big inspection, and demoralizing, terrible experience. But he'll tell you to this day, like, hey, I'm glad I went through that. I know what losing or what perceived loss feels like. I know what getting punched in the mouth feels like. I can talk to that when people come to me for help, for advice. Some people never had that experience, never been in that position, no fault of their own, but they can't really help you with, hey, how do you come back from this? Yeah. I don't know. I've never been there. I've been fortunate or whatever.
So was it at Langley or your next assignment when you decided to write and make that publication about work-life balance?
The work-life balance came on later. I want to say it was later on. It was something I worked on at Eglin. So long story short, Langley, we were only there for a year, right? We were there for about 6 months. We got there in July of 2015, and then December of 15 comes around, and we get the notification like, hey, the Air Force has decided to promote you to chief. Oh. It was first time up. I didn't think it was going to happen, not that year or maybe ever. I thought I was going to just get told, hey, not good enough for you to make the cut.
You made it without
I made it with no strat. Okay. I made it with that EPR that told me that I didn't clearly exceed all expectations. Yeah. I made it through all that craziness. I mean, I felt like it was a storm. I was like, really? This is it. This is
yeah, that's cool.
This is what I earned. I get told you're not good enough and go with your turn, basically. That's all I heard.
Good enough,
all I
here's
heard.
Your stripe.
Yeah. And then turns out like, hey, we're going to promote you anyway. We don't care what. Yeah. So it was kind of like, huh. So God had other plans, so I always tell people, people close doors, and God knocked down walls for you. So that's the way I took that. Like, well, I guess he had other plans for us. So anywho, long story short, we found out, hey, congrats, you're chief select, but guess what? There's no slot here for you at Langley in your particular career field, so you're going to have to PCS, and here's the list. And then we got a couple of lists. It worked out that we got opportunity to go to Eglin in Florida in the Panhandle. Life is good. I'm a Miami native, so hey, I'm in Florida. I'm in the Panhandle, but I'm in Florida. Yeah, and life is good. We're closer to Orlando. Things the kids like. The beach is right there. We can literally, go to the beach every day if we wanted to. Yep. And we're ocean. We're beach people. Our family. We like living close to the water, and we just enjoy everything that it brings. And we don't mind. I don't mind the hurricanes. I don't mind any of that stuff. People are terrified. I'm good. I could deal with all those things. Humidity, bring it on, whatever. Sure. So we moved to Eglin, and then from there, there it was. I walked into an opportunity as the material management flight chief, where they needed somebody, a coach, a mentor. They needed what a chief brought to the table. just to round out the operation there. And it was great. I got to, work there, the 96 LRS. I got to go on the deployment to Bagram and do some cool stuff. And then I think I wrote that work-life balance piece during my time there at Eglin.
Yeah.
And we got it actually published, which is pretty cool, through the Logistics Officers Association. They have an actual peer review kind of newsletter deal they run, publishing, whatever. And,
I read it a couple of days ago when I knew you were coming over here.
So I worked with Colonel Boswell, who's my commander at the 96 LRF. Something that he's a writer. He likes to write. And he kind of got me into it. And I haven't written in a while. I should probably get back into it some more.
Yeah.
I've done a few articles and I wrote one when I was deployed to Bagram. It's called Get to Yes. It's a short read, but it's pretty good. It's kind of an op-ed. Mm-hmm. I wrote a different one that was published in Germany when I was there. It's called Make It the Team You Want. And then the work-life balance piece is something I worked with Colonel Boswell on. I was really proud that it was peer-reviewed and published, which is good. But writing is something that I got to definitely find more bandwidth, more time to do more of, because it's something else that I consider to be kind of therapeutic in essence. Yeah. And you got something in your head, you kind of want to put it down and work on it, polish it, and publish it for the world to see and read and learn.
You said a lot of things there that I want to ask you about. One of them was you got to be a mentor when you got to Eglin. And something, I think I don't know if it was Cassie or Jeff Stucker, but when they were talking about their interview with you to the ALA class, something I guess you had once said is assume some people have never had a mentor and to be that mentor. Yeah. So I guess the question is, like, if you want to be someone's mentor, how do you do that?
Well, mentor is an interesting concept, and I hear people say mentor, but mentor tells you, here's how I did things when I was walking through the path you're walking through right now. Here's the things that I encounter. Here's how I navigated through it. And that's cool. There's times to be a mentor, but really what we need now more of is coaches. A coach will tell you, here's what you bring to the table. Here's what you have. Here's where you're good at. Here's how you can use that, what's already in you, to get through whatever that obstacle, situation, challenge is. I think we need more coaches in general. So, and I use that word a lot, but that's really what I look at myself as when it comes to that. I look myself as a coach. You're walking through things right now as an Air Force, as a senior NCO, as an NCO that I didn't have to walk through. It was different dynamics, societal dynamic, whatever, you name it, operationally, whole different dynamics. If I told you how we did things back in 2001 when I was a staff sergeant in Korea at the 5th Recon Squadron, that's great, but none of the technology you're talking about and other things are, the society type stuff none of that was going on back in 2001. It was a whole different dynamic. It was 9/11. It was a whole different world. So your mentorship, it'll give me some perspective. It'll help me. But is it really going to help me? Because you're telling me about things. But ultimately, people need coaches. Yeah. People that can maximize what they do have and what's relevant now.
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about books. So bringing about books and about talking about, you said, I guess you had a publication in Europe, or you wrote something here about team building.
Yeah. Making a team you want.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, you told me Culture Code was a great book and read it. And then you told me to read the Go Giver.
The Go Giver ones I love. And I keep that, the Go Giver leader, I keep it in my desk.
Okay. Yeah. So I have questions to ask about all of them. But first, I read the Culture Code and then Go Giver, and then when I started reading Go Giver Leader, it's just a copy of the book. It's not about you. Yeah. Which Chief Tricky, I don't know if you know him. He had me read it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like what? Like I bought it, and it's literally the same book. They just renamed it to
renamed it.
Yeah. I felt
the Go Giver Leader.
But I've read all three. But you talked about building teams at writing it in Europe. Was it Lakenheath or somewhere else? Ramstein.
Make It the Team You Want it was an article that got posted on the KMCC has like the Kaiserslautern military community is, the Ramstein and all the surrounding army bases there. Capone, about 50,000 people strong there that are affiliated with the military. So they have a publication that published like an online pub, like a paper basically, and I think they print it too. And I wrote an article called Make It the Team You Want, which it just hits on taking ownership and talking more about we versus, hey, the institution's failing me, or this is broken, or that sucks. Is okay, how do we fix it? What can I do for my own little, 20 feet, square feet box, whatever, to get after it?
Sounds a lot like Culture Code.
Yeah. What are we doing to get after, And ultimately, nobody wants to play for the Bad News Bears. Nobody wants to play for a bad outfit, be part of a losing outfit operation. But what are we doing to own it? Yeah. Right. What are we doing to make it better within our sphere of influence?
That's good.
Yeah.
Because in culture code, one of my friends, actually, she was on this podcast, number 3, Kiara Fraser. I told her I was interviewing you, and she's currently just reading the culture code. She told me, I was like, hey, coincidence. Like, I read that book to interview someone, and she's like, oh, you should ask him about this. And I'll reframe it. Greg Popovich, the Spurs coach, he takes deliberate effort to make a team, like go out to dinner, be in huddles,
relationships.
To talk. Yeah. So what he makes effort to build a team that makes sense to me when reading it, but I've never actually deliberately done that. Have you ever done anything?
Yeah, I mean, people think it's cheesy, but food brings people together. So even here, I do it where we have the Chiefs and the shirts over to the house. I work with a lot of folks in this capacity as a command chief, but spent a lot of time talking to our group chiefs, our chiefs in general, and our first sergeants. So I think this May they'll be over to my house. I'm going to book a date here. I already told them it's going to happen, and we have those social settings where let's get together, just share a meal, share some food, let's get our families together to get to know each other. It's cheesy and it's people always overdone. It's just you have to do those things to build relationships, and they get to see you. For one, they got to understand, hey, I'm a human being. You're a human being. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. We have a lot of the same focuses and priorities. And come and see the house. We live in this command chief house. This is your house, really. I'm here because of y'all, and I'm here to influence and lead or provide advocacy for you guys, for guys and gals. So come and see the place. Come and hang out. Let's share a meal together, etc. You have to look at those small opportunities to connect. Mm-hmm. And I say this a lot, it's almost like my mantra, but you got to connect, you got to collaborate, and you have to own it together. And connection starts with that. Let's break the ice. Let's share a meal together. Let's get together. Let's find out what makes each other click, our common interests, personalities, all those things. You have to do that. That's like a no-brainer must do. And you can't just do it once. It's got to be a continual, you got to have some sustainability to it. Whether it's getting together once every 3 months, once a month, once a week, whatever the hell that looks like, where you're talking about something other than work and you're connecting as a human being, you have to make that effort. I wish I could do it once a week, but my schedule doesn't permit that. So I try to get it in at least. We have one in the winter, so I like to do another one here this spring, and then we'll probably do something else before I leave for sure. But I look for those opportunities to get together. And I know our First Sergeant Council does the whole family dinner. I think once a month they get together as a crew with their families.
All the shirts?
They go someplace downtown and have dinner.
That's cool.
And there's no agenda. It's just let's get together, have a meal, let's talk about something other than work, and just get our families together.
That's really good. Well, I tried to keep it under an hour, 10 minutes over. I got 2 more questions.
Nah, it's all good.
All right, cool. So also reading the Go Giver, something that I never really thought about till I read it, and then once I read it, I could start seeing it. But it said the most successful people are willing to share their secrets.
Yeah.
So you're pretty successul, and a lot of people.
Well, the same book references this: the more influence you give, the more influence you have.
Yep.
So you got to get people involved and connected. They gotta own it as much as you. They own it more than I do. Like everything we do here, that's the secret: is bring them in. I'm not hard to find, and I had somebody reached out to me yesterday they sent me an email for advice on career stuff, and I texted them back. And if anybody ever wants my number, my work cell, whatever, you can have it. I don't give a flip. It's on my email. Just text me. Ask me a question. I don't care. I mean, I'm here to help and coach and enable and advocate for you. So reach out. But you got to be accessible, and you got to be willing to give influence. That means you can't just make it all about you all the time. You can't, we can't be the types of talk at a 3 sides from our mouths where we say, hey, we want everybody to have ownership and provide ideas and provide inputs. And the minute they do, we want to shut them out or say, no, never mind. I want to do it this way. Then why you ask me? You got to be willing to give a little bit, or give a lot. As long as they meet the intent and the vision of where we want to go, that's all good. Let them have some creative space. Let them, that way they own it. They'll commit. They won't just comply. Do whatever it is we're talking about doing.
Yeah. So if you had to share one secret,
that's it.
Just be accessible.
Open it up. Don't make it about you. I mean, you can share your vision. Say, hey, this is where I want us to go with X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. Case in point, we had a meeting a few weeks ago before I went on leave about the quarterly award ceremonies. Hey, new year, we're going to revamp some things. Hopefully the pandemic's behind us, knock on wood, so we can open up some more doors and do more things and be more creative. So I had a big meeting. We threw a lot of firepower at it. A good sized committee, and I told them, here's the vision. I want people to make it fun, make it a fun event to attend. I want to pack the house for these things, and I want to have it. I want to honor the nominees and their families to the utmost.
Yeah.
I want a lot of people, if you want to throw in some slideshows, something, make it more personable, more a fun event. Make it an event that if I'm a staff sergeant or a tech sergeant that's busy working, that I want to, hey, can I go to this? Make it that type of deal. That's all I ask. Everything else, I'm here to provide top cover, cut red tape, and find a way to yes. Come and see me when you run into a wall, and we'll figure out how to get around it or knock it down. Go run with it. Own it. That's it.
That's simple.
Simple. Keep it simple for people, because otherwise, if you start trying to micromanage or tell them, how to color stuff in or how to do X, Y, and Z or whatever, then they have no commitment. It's just they'll comply with whatever you ask them to do, and they'll check the box and give you 50% effort, and then you'll have a ceremony. It'll meet the box. It'll check the box, but it won't be something that.
Yeah, what's the difference between compliance and commitment?
Compliance and commitment. Compliance is, hey, I'll do what you ask me to do because I have to, because I work here. I'm taking a paycheck from the Air Force, and, you're my IE supervisor, whatever role it is. And I'll meet the requirements of whatever set, AFI, checklist, whatever. I'll check the box. Mm-hmm. Commitment is, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to meet all the requirements, but I'm going to go extra. I'm going to give you the extra. I'm going to run that extra mile for you, and fully put in, my creative thoughts into everything. I'm going to go out of my way to give you that extra, to run that extra mile, to make it extraordinary in essence. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. Is because I'm committing. You gave me enough of an open canvas, blank canvas to paint and be creative and own it. When you give people that, they'll go the extra mile for you.
Okay.
At least it's been my experience.
Yeah, passion.
I'll go the extra mile if my boss tells me, hey, you have there's the vision I have for it. Here's the mission type order. Go execute it. Cool. You trust me enough to do this? I want to give you, I want to do so well, you're going to give me 10 more things that you're going to ask me to do, because you're going to see how this turns out.
Yeah, if you give people a task and the confidence and belief that they can do it, they'll run through walls.
Now, before you do that, you better provide enough coaching leading up to those things. Coaching, you better provide them with the resources when they need them, or be willing to at least get most of those resources, whatever are available. And you better keep your word of, hey, I'm going to provide top cover and provide resources and cut red tape for you. And by the way, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to let you know, like, hey, before you do this, keep X, Y, and Z in mind. Or this happened, last time. Maybe we can find a workaround for it. You got to provide some coaching. That way they don't get themselves in a situation where it blows up in their face and it's worse off. But ultimately, people will commit when they feel like they can trust you.
Yeah.
If they can't trust you, if they don't feel like you're going to look out, for their best interest or for the best interest of the whole thing, and you're just looking out for yourself, or you're making it about you, maybe they'll comply.
Yeah.
They'll work out of fear and just do it, get it done.
This is to say that in the, and I think it was the culture code. It talks about that, like people won't trust you if you don't trust yourself, and they won't accomplish things. Yeah.
And the cool thing is, in this job, you find yourself in a lot of opportunities to influence, to help decisions be made, and to just put people in opportunities to grow and to get the best out of them, right? And that's the thing that when we leave here this summer, I'll be the most proud of, is just seeing people come out of their shell and being given the opportunity to run with things and to own it.
Yeah. About 18 months as command chief here, right? What's been your most proudest moment?
18 months. Multiple proud moments. I have too many to count. Right now you put me in a spot, but we showed up here at the end of December of 20, beginning of January of 21, and we go straight into a NORI, seeing the team maneuver through COVID, through the elements and the weather and everything else. And then, you run right into the NORI part 1, part 2. We put that to bed. We did extremely well. The whole time we're working on initiatives, quality of life type stuff, or FSS or MSG doing phenomenal work to get after housing, all those challenges. Doing the extra work to make sure our housing validation, all our stuff got done right, and our housing allowance rates went up. And then leading up to the SYNC IEA, being a finalist in the Air Force, which is, I don't think people realize how big of a deal that is, how many installations.
It's your second time.
Yeah, I've been there, done it. 2015, I was part of the team that hosted it. So I was writing the package and then hosting the team and all that. But my gut, every fiber, every cell in my body tells me I think we're going to be the winner this time around here at Fairchild. I think we meet everything the award aims to recognize. And I think pound for pound, nothing's been handed to us. We have to be creative and scrap for everything we got. no knock on anybody else, but I think it's just something that comes with being in a position where you have to be creative and find solutions instead of formulating complaints. And I think we do a really good job of that here, trying to get after some solutions.
Sounds like you heard it here first that we won.
No, I'm not saying that we won, and I was just to be really clear. It's just my honest, humble opinion, and this is just me, and there's a 50-50 chance I'm way off, is I see us as a winner. I don't see us, somebody used the word underdog, and I found that almost like insulting. Like underdog means you're expected to lose. You're supposed to lose. I never go into anything, at least I don't think our team here goes into anything looking to lose.
I agree. It's so interesting you said that. I once talked about this, I forget when, but I was saying the same thing. Like, America always roots for the underdog, and I don't understand it because you're just rooting for the person that hasn't put in the work. Well,
underdog's almost like a word people used to. Well, you're supposed to be a loser. You're almost like a slap in the face a little bit, and I hate that. I hate being labeled an underdog. Like, what makes you think that we're inferior? Any less. If anything, if you look at it, I think we're pound for pound as good as anybody out there, considering what we don't have and the limitations we have, and we still manage to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So that's just me. That's just my personal pet peeve. And people don't mean it that way as an insult. They look at it as well, you're smaller. And I'm like, well, I get it. And they're not looking to insult anybody. But in my head, I guess that's what I tell myself to get even more motivated. Like, well, I don't see us as any underdog for anything.
Yeah.
I think we're as capable as anybody.
I agree with that.
So cool. It's like Muhammad Ali has a quote about impossible. Impossible is just something people throw out there to make you feel smaller and like you can't do it.
Yeah.
And it goes something like that. I'm not quoting it verbatim. I have it on my phone. I look at it often, but it's like a little poem about impossible. Impossible is nothing.
It's good to see you struggle with a quote you like, because there's a lot of quotes I like, but whenever I try to say, I'm like, I'm not saying it.
Well, I save a lot of stuff, and when I'm doing my morning routine workout, whatever, sometimes I have to take a look and say, all right, what's in my head today?
Yeah.
But if Muhammad Ali fascinates me, his whole story, his whole demeanor, the things, I don't know, just something I keep nearby.
Definitely. Cool. Well, one of the last things I like to ask people, and I'll give you the final words after, but when I started this podcast, I wanted to get after chiefs, commanders, whoever I could, high level leaders. They've got all this experience that they've know, and it's awkward for NCOs to just talk to chiefs. So hopefully for me, it's like a thing where they can hear you talk. But in your 25 years, who's been your biggest mentor or the best leader you know? And what was it that this person did that we can all try to emulate?
I don't know if I have a biggest or best. I mean, I've been blessed and just fortunate to be around some just phenomenal people. They're great people, and people often confuse rank with great or rank with I don't know,
success,
goodness or success, and that's not always the case. I mean, I had when I first came into the Air Force at Shaw Air Force Base, I had a senior master sergeant. His name is Mike Brill, Senior Brill, who, what really impressed me about him was he was approachable, he was down to earth, he was intense, he was about his business. But I would see him in the gym, in the weight room, and he would come and talk to a Airman Basic, a one striper. I came in and no stripes, 18, 19-year-old Airman Basic, and he would take the time to talk to us and lift weights and just. He used to go hang out at the DFAC and eat dinner. He was by himself. He wasn't married. He would eat at the chow hall for dinner or lunch, whatever, and he would just take the time to talk to us about life, about the Air Force, about things to really focus in on and worry about.
I feel like especially in 98, that wasn't normal.
97, 98, it wasn't normal, and it was just he was humble enough and focused enough on what mattered to know, hey, if I don't talk to these airmen, who else is putting stuff in their head?
Yeah, it sounds like such a simple gesture that if you would have said, if you would just, hey, John, go to the chow hall and talk to your airman, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't have done it.
But he just did it naturally. You see you in the weight room, or he'll see you in the gym, and he would talk to you. He'll hey, I'm going to see him at the DFAC. He'll talk to you. And when it was time to go to work and do things, he will be, intense about it and all about his business. And that's what to me, that's a senior master sergeant. That's what a senior NCO, that to me was my bar. I want to be like this guy, all about his business. When it's time to be about business, but at the same time, you can go to him for life advice, for career advice, whatever.
Did you ever tell Senior, or hopefully Chief Brill, that?
Yeah, he retires as Senior.
Okay.
And he was one of those guys, I think he did his 21 years and decided to call it. And then I think he moved to Nevada. I think he was teaching college or something along those lines. But he was just one of those people. He had the right focus. You need to be accessible and available to your people. That's your job. That's what you're there for. if you're not going to be accessible and available and open up and be honest with folks, and what are we doing? What are you doing? I mean, you're making it about yourself. So that made a great impression on me. And if I ever make it, at the time I remember being an Airman Basic one striper thing. If I ever make it that far, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
He keeps himself in shape. He's about his business, and he's available and there for folks when he needs to be.
Do you feel like you've done it? Like you're doing that?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, time will tell. I don't know.
It's hard to like, I do that.
I'm in the moment now. I'm like, whatever. I mean,
I'd say most of the air traffic people think that you know them or that they know you. So which is, I think, pretty rare.
And it's hard with this job because there's so many people, and then you always wonder, like, am I doing a good enough job? Do people even, have I helped anybody? Have I influenced anybody? Sometimes you'll never know. Sometimes you do. Some people tell you run into them 5, 10 years from now, and they say, man, you were great, or if you stunk up the joint or you did terrible in an interaction, you might never hear about it. You will. I hope I do. I hope I hear from everybody. Like, hey, you sucked. Yeah. I'm glad you got this figured out.
But I think if that's something you're after, I'm confident you'll do a better job at it, and you'll probably get those things.
Correct.
That's important to you.
Yeah. So I hope so, man. I hope. I want the best for people and for them personally and for their career and all that. So I hope I've been a good influence. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not waking up looking to ruin somebody's day or to be terrible at my job. That's for sure. I want to be good. So yeah, Mike Brill comes to mind, and I have multiple people I encountered. Man, too many to mention. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's that tech sergeant that came in. Remember my first Christmas away from home in '97. Tech Sergeant Richie shows up at the dorms, and he picks up all of us that are there in the dorms, hanging out, nowhere to go for Christmas. He took us to his house for Christmas. I think it was Christmas morning for lunch and a movie.
He just came to your dorms. Hey, you're with me.
Old school. He just showed up in our dorm.
No
cell phones, I didn't even work for him. I didn't even. I was an augmentee in his shop. He worked in the mobility shop. They used to call it MOBAX or IPE, Individual Protective Equipment Shop. And I was an augmentee, so I would go there and when the exercises, real world operations, and just go help in that warehouse pretty much. And that's how he knew a lot of us from that. And then he showed up in our dorm Christmas morning, knocked on our door. I remember I was playing like some loud Biggie Smalls music or something crazy, And then he banging on my door like, "What's going on?" And I thought I was in trouble. I was like, "No, get dressed, come over to the house. I'll bring you over to my house for Christmas lunch." I think we watched. His wife and all them made lunch for us, and we watched the movie. We watched the Saint. Is it Heath Ledger or something? I don't know. I remember who that was. But little stuff like that to me is like, that's not a chief doing it. That's not a senior. That's not somebody doing it chasing something or for whatever reason. This somebody doing it because it's the right thing to do. These airmen are alone. They're hanging out in the dorms. They're away from home. I think he knew a lot of us as our first Christmas away from home, or not being back wherever we're from. So he made it a point to go and find us and, hey, let's go have lunch. I'll feed you guys, watch a movie, and then I'll take you back home. And it's something positive to do on a Christmas holiday.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Senior Brill and the Tech Sergeant. What was his name? Tech Sergeant
Richie.
Tech Sergeant. That was his last name.
Yeah,
Richie.
Richie. Yeah,
Tech Sergeant Richie. Like, it seems like the two mentors you mentioned hit you when you were this young airman. So it sounds like airmen, these young airmen.
I say they're
perfect time.
They were influential people, and at the time, I don't think they realized how much of an impact they have. Maybe they did. I don't know. And then you had other people that you come across in different seasons in your life and your career with. They say something, do something, because people hear what you say, but really listen to what you do.
Yeah,
that's something I stick with. No, it doesn't matter what you say or how you say you feel. It's what you do. Your actions. What actions follow the things you're talking about? That's what they listen to. That's what they remember, and that's what burns in their head is what you do. Anywho, there's different people and different paces in my life. Times in my life. I had a Tech Sergeant Bayless when my younger brother got really sick one time. He was in the ER. He was in ICU. He had a medical condition that's now under control. Long story short, I remember calling him. I was in a panic. He was, at the time, I probably was 19 years old or something like that. And I was freaking out because everybody was hysterical. They thought he wasn't going to make it. He was like passed out. It was crazy. And I remember calling him in a panic. And he was like, "Calm down. Just go home. I'll take care of your leave stuff." Because I was freaking out about, I got to do the leave paperwork. Like,
no, I do that.
I got you. I'll take care of it. Go home, be with your brother. I got you covered.
You just flew out that day, the next day?
The next day or that same day, I was going somewhere. I was going back home to be with my brother and to see what was going on, and it wasn't as crazy as I thought it was going to be. But anywho, at the time, it was my first real emergency at home type deal. And then Blue, he goes by Blue. He came through and said, just go take care of your business. And to this day, I still hear from him now and then. I still, but that was one of my supervisors at Shaw, you know, when I was a senior airman. Just a lot of little things, you know, that people do for you, things they say. They say things, but the things they do that really just made an impression on me on what right looks like as a supervisor and as a senior NCO, et cetera, to this day. And then I mentioned I work with, you know, Phil Easton, who's going to retire this summer. He's the UCOM senior enlisted leader. Phenomenal, you know.
Yeah, I watched him speak at an NCOA graduation.
Very sharp. He's great family. His wife Yolanda. It's just you know, people see a lot of these folks, and sometimes, you know, they meet him in person or they have a chance to interact with them and work with them. They're like, well, they're really this way. Like Phil is as legit as they come. You know, he's good people. Yep. Chief Cruz Munoz, who's retired now, Anthony Cruz Munoz. He was the former 3rd Air Force Command Chief. Just good people all around. You know, people that I can reach out to anytime if I need help, if we need something for our airmen here, and they'll come through for you. They'll go up to bat for you. Just make a good impression on folks. And I had a great team of command chiefs in USAF Africa, my previous job, where I got to watch them operate and learn. Just good people. There's a lot of good people, quality people out there. What I ask people to keep in mind is you might catch a glimpse of them some days. When they're busy, they're running around, they're not as attentive as you think they should be, et cetera. We don't control our schedules. We don't control what priorities the day brings. And we try to do the best we can with the limited time we have. Sometimes it'll be 12 months at a base, 18 months, or 24 months to make a difference, to change some things. And, you know, and even the day-to-day, you know, sometimes your day is 10 hours, sometimes it's 12 hours because you get to go home and change and you're still at work doing some after work hours event. So just keep that in mind. There's a yin and a yang with that. Yeah,
it's cool to hear what a command chief recognizes as their mentors growing up. So I thank you for sharing that. I exceeded it, almost hit 90 minutes here, so I'll let you have the last word. Yeah, it goes by fast when you're doing it. It doesn't feel like it. But I'll give you the last words, and then we'll end this thing. So
the last words are this, and I mentioned it before, and there's a key things that I write down. I have a big whiteboard in my office, and I kind of read different things or come across different things, but and I hit it before, but if people remember, they might hear you say things, they can hear you, but they ultimately listen to and follow what you do, right? What actions come with that. The other piece is, you know, no matter what your role is, I mean, it's not about you. You're there to give influence. You're there to make it about we and to us, and not about me and I and what's in it for me, right? Just keep that in mind, whatever. And they're not going to pay you enough to do these jobs, to be whether you're a staff sergeant, whatever job you're in, senior airman, staff, whatever. The Air Force, the military is not meant to make you rich, but the experiences you get to have, the opportunities that are, you know, presented in front of you, and the people you get to interact and work with. Not only, you know, sometimes people won't be at their best. Sometimes they'll be at their best. Sometimes they'll be at their worst. But the interactions, the experiences, is pretty much your biggest takeaway from military service or any kind of service to your nation. And the last thing, and you heard this before, and I kind of try to live by it, is give as much influence as possible. The more influence you give, the more you have. That means open doors for people. You're there to open doors for people, bring them into the conversation, coach them, leave them better than you found them, expose them to as much, you know, info, as much influence as possible. And that's it. That's the secret to it. If there's a secret to anything. I mean, I pride myself in being a team builder and a synergizer and kind of a big connection kind of person. Connection, collaboration, and collective ownership. That's it.
Sounds good. To be an influence, be influenced.
Yep.
Cool. Well, Chief Guzman, thank you for being here. Thanks for being number 18. I really appreciate it. And
number 18, that was Chief Wright. 18.
Hey, there you go. See, I knew we'd find a way to connect it.
And K. Wright, phenomenal people. Chief Wright, Chief Master of the Air Force Wright, retired now. Had a chance to meet him a few times. I think he's one of those people that, definitely look up to as a great influencer.
Yep. He was walking through a crowd once, and I reached over, and he fist bumped me. I just got in
you
there
touched,
just enough.
Yeah, you fist bumped. You were blessed by enlisted Jesus.
I was.
Good for
during
you,
his
my
active
brother.
duty time.
One impression that he made on me was I was at it was the command chief, whatever orientation deal back in 2019. It was towards the end of his, run at, that position. And I think I talked to him like once or twice, maybe. I think I saw him at Eglin in Florida. I think we had like a Chiefs dinner and all that. And I remember him saying, "Hey, Goose, how's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, he actually knows my name." Like,
Yeah,
I didn't realize
cool.
he knew my name. Like,
isn't it weird how that's so important to people? Like, whoa, this guy knows mine. Like, it means a lot.
And I think it had to do with the circles we ran in with Chief. I don't know. Somehow,
regardless, you felt important, and
I felt like his guy actually remembered my name.
Yeah.
He meets like thousands of people a day in that capacity, and even now, in his role now, in retired life, he's meeting a lot of people on a daily. And I'm like, wow, this guy actually remembers.
It's so in ALA week 2. That's what I always teach is if you can just remember people's name, they're gonna like you, and so like that's just like proof. Like,
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's it. There's no secrets, man. Just show up, do the work, give some influence, and then make it about the we and the us. And along those lines, and I'll leave it, with this self-care as in fitness, your mental well-being, taking time off, which I don't do enough of. And I'm
you said that.
Giving myself a hard time about that, taking some leave and not racking up use or lose and being crazy about it. Self-care is a selfless thing because it's about, keeping yourself balanced and good to go and keeping your family and everybody good to go. That way you can better serve the people that you get to serve with. So if you're off balancing those things, then you're not going to be any good in the office. You're going to be, short, snappy, overweight, burnt out, and miserable. And nobody needs that in their life.
Senior Guzman from Lakenheath.
You'll be that guy who was just salty and, damn, everything. I'm overweight. I don't feel like I got any sleep the last 3.5 years. And that's no good for the team. They need you to be at your best.
Cool. Once again, thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to Have a Tisue podcast number 18 with Command Chief Master Sergeant Daniel Guzman. Being available for airmen and coaching people is what Chief values the most. I appreciate him finding the time on my birthday to come by and talk for 2 hours. The Airmen at Elmendorf have a good command chief headed their way this summer. Have a Tisue podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Breaker, and Anchor. Thanks for listening.